Good. Thanks for coming. All right. Welcome to Season 3, Episode 4 of How to Build a Sustainable Music Career and Collect All Revenue Streams. Huge thanks to the New York City Mayor's Office of Media and Entertainment for making this season happen. This live podcast taping is a part of New York Music Month, the official celebration of New York City's vibrant and dynamic music ecosystem. Today's episode is supported by Warm Audio, which helps musicians and engineers gain access to fully professional recording equipment. Warm Audio manufactures classic analog recording gear that many musicians only dreamt of owning just a few years ago. It's also June, which means it's Pride Month. I want to deeply thank our partners over at the Ally Coalition for supporting us and the crucial work that they are doing. Founded in 2013 by Jack and Rachel Antonoff, the Ally Coalition provides critical support for organizations dedicated to bettering the lives of the LGBTQ youth and raises awareness about the systematic inequalities facing the LGBTQ population. The Ally Coalition is committed to bettering the lives of LGBTQ youth through tours, social media campaigns, and collaborative partnerships. To learn more on how you can get involved, visit theallycoalition.org. Okay, so we are a third of the way through covering the entire modern music industry in full. You've gotten your art together in just a few days, right? Like you're ready to go. Just kidding, that can obviously take a lifetime. You have your pre-recording marketing platforms in place to build your audience, so that's ready to go when you release your music. Yesterday, we covered business affairs and everything you need to do legally for your music. In particular, ensuring everyone in the studio signs a work for hire agreement. And you have a clear process to discuss and confirm songwriting splits. So now it's finally time to record. We're on a step 4, right? Like a lot of times people rush into recording, but like I said, we want to make sure you have your art together, you have your pre-recording marketing foundation in place, and you have all your paperwork taken care of before you hit the studio, right? So now's the fun part, in my opinion. So as mentioned in episode 1, there are 2 historic changes that have freed up artists to own and control their careers. The first is access to recording technology, which is what we're talking about today. The other is distribution, which we're going to talk about on Friday. But in the meantime, let's explore today's topic, how to record with or without a budget. So to do so, I'm pleased to introduce Ryan Burvick, also known as Ryan Perfect, founder at Audio Pictures and program director at the Free Studio / Beats, Rhymes, and let's try that again. Founder at Audio Pictures and program director at the Free Studio / Beats, Rhymes, and Justice. Ryan is a music producer and audio engineer with over 20 years of experience in the art and science of sound. He started as an off-Broadway actor during his elementary years. I love that, elementary years. Ryan's passion for music production and songwriting emerged during his teenage years as he began rapping and selling bootleg mixtapes on the street. He began his journey in the music business through internships at Motown and Tommy Rikers. Ryan gained recognition by performing with the Lyricist Lounge at various venues throughout New York City. After receiving numerous contract offers, including a publishing offer from Sony ATV, Ryan forged his own path. He turned his childhood apartment into a recording studio and established Audio Pictures, a production company specializing in artist development. In 2015, he pioneered the revolutionary digital music program Beats, Rhymes, and Justice on New York City's Rikers Island, which expanded to multiple correctional facilities. Thanks for bearing with me today. I swear I'm not as tired as I have been the rest of the week. Profoundly impacting aspiring musicians' lives. Ryan Burvick's unwavering commitment to his craft, coupled with his dedication to artist development and rehabilitation, has solidified his reputation as a transformative force in the community. His work continues to inspire and uplift individuals, impacting the artistic and personal growth of those he mentors. He's currently building a recording studio in New York City's Nomad District, allowing rising artists to connect and create. Let's welcome Ryan. Yeah. Absolutely. It's so great to see you. I haven't seen you in such a long time.
Yes. Excellent. Hello, you all. Hello. Do I need this microphone? Or?
Yeah, right?
There's a mic on?
Yeah. Is the mic on?
Yeah.
You guys can hear Ryan, right?
I'm sure you guys can hear me now.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure. 1, 2, yes. So, yeah.
Are you good up there, Jake? Okay.
Okay.
Great. So, Ryan, where are you from?
I'm from Queens, New York.
Nice.
Born and raised in the city, specifically the Long Island City, Astoria area. Area like really popular for like a lot of 80s and 90s hip hop music. The Queensbridge area where my mother is from is like housed the artists of Mobb Deep, Nas, Marley Marl, who invented the art of sampling in hip hop. Those are like relatives through like family and stuff like that. So it's just a community of artists focused on this hip hop genre. And then like Astoria, you know, Tony Bennett, you know what I mean, all the bunch of like, you know, I lived right down the block from Steinway, the Steinway factory for years and stuff like that. So yeah.
Incredible. And it is, June is also the 50th anniversary of hip hop as well.
Exactly.
Love it. So how did you get into acting at such a young age?
Well, I probably was a dramatic kid, you know what I mean, probably. But I think it was because I just needed to control some of my energy. I was a single mother, single parent home, hyper kid. And someone told my mother, hey, you know what, to help him channel some of his energy, you might want to get him into this acting program at the Harbor up in East Harlem in New York and stuff like that. So I ran track and did acting, and then I was doing off-Broadway plays from that point.
That's great. And so, you know, actually both track too, because I was an athlete growing up. Between theater and track, what did those experiences teach you?
Discipline.
Yeah.
I enjoyed the process before the showtime. It was like, I vaguely remember the shows, but I actually remember like the training. I remember the rehearsals. I remember the dress rehearsals. I remember the trips to Randall's Island tracking for the track. I remember running at Van Cortlandt Park doing long distance and stuff like that. So yeah.
Very cool. And so how did you first start recording as a teenager?
Basically, it was a couple of phases. I first got to record at when I was like rapping, when I was young and stuff. I got into rapping. I met the managers, this dude named Rakim, and this guy named Small Chain. They were managers for like Cool G Rap and a lot of the like 80s, 90s rap artists. They tried to get me in studios and stuff. They tried to get me into local studios just to record my little demos. Then I ended up linking with Lyricist Lounge, and actually got to record free studio time over there at Lyricist Lounge Studios on 32nd Street. And there was an engineer there who was set to record me, but he wasn't getting paid. His name was Joe Chris. And he was like, listen, if I'm gonna record you, you're gonna have to record me. And in order to record me, I'm gonna teach you this Roland 1680 board. And I was like, all right, cool. You know what I'm saying? I'll record you, no problem. I'll record you. So I just learned how to punch in. It was a digital board. It wasn't even a DAW. It was just like actual board. And I got pretty good at that. And then one time, he had a session with Slick Rick, and he had like a food poisoning or something. His stomach was bothering him, and he was like, "Yo, Ryan, can you take over?" And I was like, "Hell yeah, I'll take over." So I got to record Slick Rick as like my first time recording, and I was nervous, but he made it easy because he kept messing up. So he kept messing up. He did like 40 takes, and I was like, all right, one more time, Rick, one more time. You got this, no problem. So that was like my first time recording. Wow,
and that's such an example of, you know, whatever that saying is, like 50% or X amount of success is showing up.
Definitely, just being there. Slick Rick would come to the studio every Thursday with one friend, some weed and a banana nutriment, and I just made sure I was there. You know, he liked what I was doing when I was rapping and stuff like that. He was a big fan of me, but so I was there just absorbing, watching how he worked the room and watching how he produced.
Yeah.
So I didn't know that I was going to be able to record him. I was just there to observe.
Right.
Yeah.
And it sounds like even at that young age and in that first, you know, recording experience that you didn't even plan on, you were like a calming influence on him, which is incredible because that's like a really experienced artist.
Indeed. Yeah. He used to call me New School. And he kind of used to ask me for my opinion and stuff like that at that time. I think this had to be 2001, 2002. I think right before he faced some sort of deportation. And I got to, I'm not sure, I think the founder of Lyricist Lounge, or Joe Crystal, has the masters to those records, I think.
Wow.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah. I got to jump on some vocals, on some hooks and stuff.
I love it.
Yeah, it was cool.
Incredible.
Real cool.
Yeah.
Real cool.
So you went to Hunter College. Why did you choose going to Hunter here in New York City?
I'm a city kid. I always went to school in the city. I went to elementary school on 81st and Madison. So I was familiar, and then junior high school over there in the same area. So I kind of was familiar with the area. And Hunter was like an extra high school. It was like the 13th grade for me.
Sure.
You know, and I liked the city. I was working at the Equinox and at the time, and I just wanted to be in the mix of the city and just, enjoy it. So,
Absolutely.
yeah.
And what did interning at Motown and Tommy Boy Records teach you?
That taught me that there's so many different steps to this process of making it, or whatever people might call it. It taught me like behind the scenes about how things work. I got to see BDS sound scans for artists at the time.
And what's that?
BDS, from what I recall, BDS sound scans were basically the data that companies would use to track sales of physical copies of CDs, cassettes, vinyl, and so forth. I think it was the main thing in the late 90s. It was CDs at that time. And I got to see the BDS, the scans and the weekly reports and who was selling what in what markets. And at the time, I was really confused about how Jay-Z is selling 1 million more records than Nas. I was just like, how? And then I realized that, not in New York, he's not really out selling Nas in New York. It was Montana. It was North Dakota, where Nas CDs weren't even shipped to certain stores. And that's where he was making his grounds of certain records. That was an eye-opener. I learned how certain marketing promos of records. I learned about how, some people make money with, how can I say, with promo versions of records. They would double ship, records to record stores, ship the ones that had the hole punched out in the, what is that, the back of the scan thing called?
Like the card, the sleeve.
Barcode,
Yeah,
right?
okay.
They would take the barcode out, and send like 2 packs extra to encourage the store to swipe them 2 or 3 times per sale. I learned a lot of cool, interesting hacks that companies would do to market. And in Motown, I was underneath Lynn Scott. She was the head of marketing over there. She ended up being head of marketing for a lot of Beyonce, Solange, and stuff. With Matthew Knowles, and now she's doing she's a hit code with Ruby Rose and so forth. I was under Sam Crespo and Chris Atlas and Sean Jones at Tommy Boy. They're Sam Crespo is, I'm not sure still, but for years he was the head of urban marketing at Atlantic. So I got to intern under these powerful marketing people for that have end up doing this for the next 20, 30 years.
I love it. And so you were an artist too. I mean, you are an artist.
Indeed.
How did you build a buzz around your own career when performing with the Lyricist Lounge and around venues around the city? Because it's like, okay, well, obviously you're talented and people were into it, but that's probably like the number one question I get. It's just like, well, how did you start to generate that excitement?
Well, I think at that time, I think I found a unique talent in aspects of how I was rapping and what I was rapping and where I was rapping and who I was rapping for. Being that I had some ties to the Queensbridge area, the rappers Nas and his crew, the Bravehearts, took a liking to me, took me under their wing, and I had some ideas, some creative concepts of songs that basically caught their attention. I had songs about, I was rapping about me being the pimp and the pen is my hoe, and how the pen would bring me paper, stuff like that. When I was a teen, it was really ear candy for rap fans. I had stories rapping going backwards, and then Wiz and Jungle would tell me later Nas had something like that, similar, rapping going backwards, and that they wanted me to hear it or something like that. You know what I mean? Stuff like that. I was around for a couple of things, so just having different ideas of rapping, having different concepts what made me unique, and then that. The Bravehearts showing interest in me inspired, I guess, the Lyricist Lounge to show interest in me, because they're like, well, if these guys, they're interested in him, we might need to give him an ear, and then so forth. It built that way, and then I would show up, and I was just always present. I was always just working.
Yeah, and you know, it reminds me of we had Vernon Reed from Living Color on season 2, and
I love that show.
Yeah, and like no, from the band.
Oh,
I love
sorry.
the show.
I'm so sorry.
Too.
I'm so sorry. Oh, I'm so sorry.
No,
yeah, I had my heart voice. I was like, Living Color.
No, that would be amazing. But both of you guys clearly like really put yourself out there. You know, like you were at shows, you were playing shows, you were meeting people. And I know like we can, it might sound glamorous from people, you know, for people that aren't in New York, like, okay, well, you're in New York City, but like every place has its scene, you know?
That's right. Definitely.
So you just got to get out there.
Yeah.
Do you mind if I ask why you turned down a publishing deal?
You know what? I ask myself that every couple of years. So yeah, real quick, because of the little, when I say buzz, right? I had like what they might be called an industry buzz, right? Mm-hmm. I never, like, even though I put myself out there, I never spent the time distributing the music, and I never spent the time actually getting the music to as many fans as I could, right? I was in studios where artists would hear me talk about me to other artists, you know what I mean? Yeah. I'd hear that, I'd run into lawyers that are saying, hey, I've heard about you because I represent such and such, and he was speaking about you during his session last night. What are you doing? Come with me to Sony, and I want you to meet my friend such and such, who's the A&R over here at Sony.
Yeah.
And then the A&R at Sony, I would develop relationships. After me creating my own home studio, I would make music, and I would just play them my rough demos, and after a while, the A&R Sony, his name is Juan Madrid, still a good friend of mine. He offered me a publishing deal, I guess a co-publishing deal, I say. And it was a pretty cool deal for an artist without any buzz, you know what I mean? It was like a small deal compared to how they were giving other artists at the time. Sure. And I needed a lawyer. I was concerned that the lawyer that brought me over there only brought me to one record company. TVT was interested in signing me as well to a similar deal, but the lawyer didn't want to check it out. And I was just like, well, why wouldn't you want to check it out, you know? Yeah. And I got another lawyer, and he was like, hey, man, you're going to be really excited if you flop. And, you know, if you flop and if you take this deal and you flop, you'll be excited. But if you happen to have some success, you're going to be pissed you took this deal.
Totally.
So, of course, I'm thinking, I'm going to be the biggest thing in the world, right? So I was like, nah, we could find a better deal. And then I never, ever went back for a record, anything. Right. I actually never stepped foot back into a label after that. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, the thing is, and I don't even have to look at that agreement, it's like they would, you know, it's a great segue for the next episode, which is music publishing isn't scary or confusing.
I love that title.
Thank you. Chapter. But they would own your songs forever.
Yeah, I wonder, I think, I wonder if there was total ownership or 50% or something like that.
There might have been a reversion after like 20, 25 years.
Something of that sort. Yeah. And I have to write a couple amount of songs per year to fulfill the contract. Yeah. So it was basically I had to work, you know. Yeah. It was a writing deal, not a record deal. Mm-hmm. It was for writing and for, not to say I was writing for other people, but that and then that would probably inspire a label to want to work with me because they had someone that would exploit the records. So, you know, it was like, it could have been like a pre-step to a recording contract. Yeah. Something like that.
And, well, you know, and we talked about this in the last episode. There's two main rights in music. There's recording and songwriting. And so that was focused on your songwriting. But the advice the attorney was giving you is basically just like, you know, do you want to own your songs forever?
That's right. Exactly. So, yeah. That's why I turned the deal down.
Yeah. I figured.
Yeah.
So you alluded to this, but how did you turn your childhood apartment into a recording studio, and what did you need to do so?
Okay, well, I grew up in a single parent home with my mother, but it was a 1-bedroom apartment, right? And my father had got word that I'm traveling to Brooklyn 2-3 in the morning. I'm going all over to the Bronx. I'm all over the city just trying to record. And he was like, man, can't you do something like set this up in your house or something? And I was like, all right, you know, okay, cool. So then I had a cousin of mine by the name of Chad Vegas. He grew up in Vegas. He was like a producer on Reason. He used to like use the program Reason. It's a digital audio workstation. And he came over to the house like just one of those vacations and installed a bunch of stuff on my desktop computer that I never used for high school. Yeah. You know, and then from there he installed Cubase. He installed a bunch of apps that I didn't know, Isotope, I didn't know what these things were, and I just thought they were cool. Just install all these programs. And basically started there, and then realizing that, hey, I needed an interface. So I would go to Sam Ash or Manny's Music at the time and ask a bunch of questions and stay there for hours, finding out what interface was. And then I needed to find out what microphone I needed for the room size and so forth. And then I would hear things back and not be pleased and so forth. So I would just build piece by piece.
I love that. That's so cool.
Yeah.
And so what's Audio Pictures, which you founded?
Yeah, Audio Pictures is a music production company specializing in artist development, right? At the time, when I turned down the deals and stuff like that, I was thinking, damn, I could do it myself. If they're interested in me, I could figure this out myself. So me and my friends that produce records, we figured that we could kind of like start our own little production company and have our own record label. But then we soon realized that we kind of didn't know business. We just knew the basics of recording and rap songwriting at the time. It was just limited to that. And basically having a home studio, artists would come by to collaborate, and then artists would come by to purchase their own sessions. And I started getting interested in helping other artists. I saw beautiful talent in how certain people recorded different techniques. It was like I got an inside view of just this world of artistry. Yeah. And then I decided to give my input on punching in and what records and what takes to keep. And then it developed into some sort of artist development thing where we thought we could take artists from like 0 to 10. Yeah. Where we can just help you get the ball rolling, recording, and help you get the artwork done. There's a lot of stuff you do even prior to recording and set up, you know what I mean? But yeah, that's kind of how it started.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And so what is Beats, Rhymes, and Justice, and what inspired you to create this revolutionary program?
Well, yeah, so after years of like just, recording in the studio, at the home studio and at local studios throughout the city and wherever I would travel, I started trying to thinking about like ways to revamp. So I had a job as a site director back in like 2009, 2010 for after school programs, and I would go to these underserved communities, and I would be a site director for after school programs, and my job was to hire teachers to run this after school program and hopefully get as many kids as we could. And I realized after doing this particular job, I realized like, damn, it would be cool if they had like a music production program for after school program and stuff like that. So I just started typing up a little idea in my Google Drive. And basically idea of this program just sat in my Google Drive like an unfinished demo. It was almost like a song that wasn't even finished. I just had like a cool little melody to it, and it was just nothing else, just a skeleton. Yeah. And I just let it sit there, and I thought that I would connect with my old principal, who was the head of the board of ed at the time. I thought I would just pitch this idea to her, like, hey, Miss Farina, her name was Carmen Farina. I was like, Miss Farina, remember me? It's Ryan. I got this idea, and I never really got to her. Instead, I went to an art gallery, and a childhood friend named Marcos Rocha, basically said to me, hey, man, I just joined Columbia University, the Center for Justice. We came to Rikers Island. We were at Rikers Island earlier today. We asked them if we wanted a bunch of programming, and they said no. The kids basically said, we want music. And he's like, it's funny that I'm running into tonight. Yeah. So I happened to just show up somewhere to a friend's art gallery, and this opportunity came about. So I basically pitched this old idea / curriculum that I had written in my Google Drive to Columbia University, to the Center for Justice at Columbia University specifically. And they said that, hey, let's try it. And it was a pilot program. At the time, I didn't know that it was the first of its kind. Yeah. I just thought, I'm working with Columbia University. After me turning down the deal, it seemed like my first big break. You know what I mean? It felt, even though I was working tirelessly in between, recording, whether some artists got deals or some of them didn't, I was working the entire time, but this felt like my first break again with a larger entity to collaborate with. So I let them use the curriculum for free at first, and just participated. And I wasn't supposed to be the director of the program. I was actually hired to be a audio consultant, basically the person that might have advised the owners of this space what microphones to buy or what microphones to place in front of Emily for this podcast or something, and just set up the microphones and set the levels up and be quiet off to the side like the gentleman upstairs. That was my job for the program at the time. I was supposed to teach Columbia students the basics of the DAW, the digital audio workstation, and they were supposed to interact with the students at Rikers Island. However, once we got on the scene at Rikers Island, it was a totally different world, totally different scene that a lot of the students at Columbia weren't really prepared for. Yeah. That first class, I just basically saw things getting out of hand, and I just decided to be in the cut and turn up some music. Once I started turning up some music, all the kids flocked to me and my man to our desk and was like, "Hey man, you got a studio in the town? You got a studio? You do music? You know so-and-so? You ever been to this studio?" And then the people in Columbia were like, thank you so much, thank you. So when that happened, I got some advice from an uncle of mine who was a jazz musician. And he was like, "Hey man, if you wrote the curriculum and you're kind of leading the class, you should kind of ask them to be the director, man. This is your program." Yeah. So I was like, "Oh, all right. Hey guys, They were like, "Please, be the director." And yeah, and then we collaborated for about a year or two, and then Rikers needed music. They were like, "Yo, the kids need music. They want music. You know what I mean? We don't care what you guys work out, we want music." And then it segued to them dealing with me directly because Columbia had a whole different trajectory of what they were there for. You know, they were there for like restorative justice practices and so forth, and these things that I wasn't too familiar with. Sure. I was familiar with just recording and letting people express themselves through the microphone from having a home studio. So I just brought the home studio vibe to Rikers Island.
Amazing. What an incredible story in every way, whether, it's putting yourself out there and running into your friend. And then that's so fascinating because I would think that on one hand, when you're explaining like, well, I have to teach the Columbia folks how to record and then they have to, that's so complicated because you've already been spending like so much time, honing your craft. But yeah, that's, really, really fascinating.
I do want to say in between that time when I explained to everybody about like working diligently in between the Sony deal or the Sony offer, and then linking up with Columbia University, I was in the studio in my apartment tirelessly working with everybody. During that time, I would try to attend as many panels, you know what I mean? Not as many, but like every now and then music industry panels or panels dedicated to like the advancement of music technology, and I would sit in panels just like these, and I was in a small room just like this when I first met Emily, actually through her speaking. And I remember asking for the card. It was a Whitesmith card, which I still have. I still have the card, right? And I said to myself, and I put notes on my phone like, be good to collaborate with some of the artists I work with and stuff like that. I had in my mind, I sat in the audience while Emily was on stage, and I said, I want to work with her one day. And I just took the card down. I didn't say anything. I just said, "Hey, pleasure to meet you. I love what you said." I actually have an audio. I would just sit here and let my phone run and have audio of the speech of some of the insight that Emily shared with from that day. And that must have been about 10 years ago. That must have been like 2012 or something like that.
Wow.
Yeah.
I would love to hear that. Thank you.
Yeah.
And I remember that. That was a panel with Cheryl Crow's manager. And then I read about your work and reached out, and I was like, how can I help this program? And you're like, oh, we've met.
Yeah, exactly. I was hyped. To me, that was just like, dedication to the work and craft because I took like a mental note. It's almost like if you're a writer, a songwriter, and you put a voice memo down or like a little melody, a little riff so you don't forget it. So I treat it like, the art of music business like that same craft. So I might take a loop sample this conversation and take this contact and know I'm gonna file it and organize it for later. And then 11 years later, 10 years later, she reached out to me, you know what I mean, from something she heard, and I already had the contact because the number popped up and I already had the number in my phone. That's the crazy part. So really cool. So it's my first time being back in the same room.
And again, like cool. Not to go off like on too much of a tangent, but it's like that's why you have to put yourself out there. You know, you guys are here, you're all connecting. Like I've already shared some stories, whether it's like Yancey was an attendee the first day, and then she's like, let me know if you need help with anything. I'm like, you're hired. Can you help tomorrow?
Exactly. I see it, and that's why I'm looking to the crowd, even though it's like, just like an intimate setting here. But I'm also looking to the crowd because I'm right in that seat, taking the information down. So I know exactly. I know how important we all are. You know what I'm saying? I know how special we all are. So
Yeah.
that's why.
It all comes back around.
Yeah, it's a full combo.
I love it. So where did you begin when introducing music creation to inmates on Rikers? Like, what was the first step in working with your students there, both like literally from a technical standpoint and emotionally?
Great question. I would say the first thing to do is just meet people where they are, you know, meet at the center of where they are, find the common ground. And I think that music allows us to find common ground. You know, great melody is great melody, great songwriting is great songwriting, great story is a great story. So I think that me displaying my team's production at the time, the best that we had, we wanted to play them the best beats that we were planning on shopping to our top tier artists, instead of like saving this beat for like, oh no, I want Eminem or I want Nipsey Hussle to have this beat. I kind of was like, nah, this dude needs this beat right here. So let me just play this beat I got for you. And then me being so given with my stash of good beats, you know what I mean? And being so open with the students and giving them my all, just like in any environment, I think that created the connection to allow me to even understand where to begin. And it began with just defaulting to open. And I think that's how, you know, it started. And basically started with the introduction to, hey, what are your goals? Yeah. What do you want to do? What do you want to do while you're here? Man, I just want to record something real quick. Do you have something? What you got? Let me hear what else you got. Which is your favorite one? All right, I think you should record the second one, because that one I really felt. That's the one that really spoke to me. Did that one speak to you too? Yeah, but I kind of want to do this one because I feel like that's gonna get the clubs. But which one do you like? All right, let's record that one. So it would be like kind of like intimate conversations, even though it's a crowded room type of thing.
Okay, so I just want to flash back to episode 1 for a second, which is get your art together, because I feel like that's what you're describing. You know, like in my experience, the music, you know that truly, you know, will last for the long haul is what's true to like your heart, soul, and spirit. Not, I think the clubs will like this. That's right. You know, I mean, there are pop songwriters, and I don't want to take anything away from that, but that's what I feel like you really identified.
Yeah, and I think that helped me help them, and help each other, and create moments in these facilities and at these interesting moments. You know, beautiful times.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
That's exactly right. So did you have any challenges, or I should probably ask, what challenges with gear limitations have you faced while teaching at correctional facilities?
Yeah, a bunch of things. Recording in rooms that are untreated. Yeah. Recording in conditions where people are just talking. Imagine this conversation. Imagine you guys trying to really tap in and tune into this conversation during the train station type of vibe. You know what I mean? It's like also helping artists focus on the art, not the surroundings. Yeah. So a dedicated environment to anything creative is super unheard of, right, over there. Imagine a door busting open and you have a neighboring hall, which is an affiliate gang. There's a lot of gangs inside the jails, and they usually group the gangs, just this little sidebar, they usually group the gang members that are similar with each other, that get along with each other to prevent fights. So being that we'll just be one gang in this room, we'll be the Tower Records, you know what I mean, or the Guide, you know what I mean, whatever gang we are, right? It could be the name of the podcast, or whatever, right? Whatever. But we'll be grouped together so we can have a good time with the correctional officers, so we can basically function throughout the week. But there could be a situation where another neighboring hall is an opposite gang. And they're all together. They could bust through the door at any time, kick the doors down. They might have keys or access to certain things, and then we'll be forced to get into a whole big brawl. And sometimes any sudden movement or sound, artists will be at the microphone recording or at their keyboard and turn them back around and be totally out the mode of recording, when the whole goal is to kind of reel them in to tap into their art. So it's there are psychological barriers, there are physical safety barriers, and then there's like just environmental barriers.
Wow.
And equipment-wise, it's super strict. At certain times, at first we were allowed to bring in iPads, but no computers, no laptops, but you can bring in iPads. And at the time, iOS development as far as DAWs and iOS weren't as developed in 2015. They were actually on the verge of becoming just almost as competitive with the stuff that you can have on laptops and stuff. But we weren't allowed to bring laptops, so I couldn't get the top tier recordings, that I wanted to with the interface, with the connectivity and so forth. Then we weren't allowed to bring laptops, and we were only allowed to bring in MP3 players for like 6 months. Then we're only allowed to bring in I'll bring in records and vinyls or cassettes without a cassette player though. Yeah. So, and then you're allowed to bring laptops. So things just change, the environment changes. So that's what makes it super difficult. Just keep adjusting.
Wow. I mean, not to this is such a privileged perspective, but that's ultimately what being an entrepreneur is though too.
Definitely jump off a building and build a plane on the way down. Yeah,
exactly. And things are going to change and ebb and flow, and you are entrepreneurs as artists and folks that support artists, whether that's, suddenly there's Napster and things are shifting to digital, or in the early days of the pandemic, I remember a student saying to me, well, what happens when you're managing an artist and you plan all this stuff and then touring shuts down? And it's you figure it out.
But the challenges breed some of the best results. The challenges breed the success, There's a book by Ryan Holiday. I think, what is it called? There's another one. Chaos is what is it called? Chaos. Obstacle is the way. Yeah, obstacle is the way. There it goes. Shout out to Ryan Holiday. Mm-hmm. And I think that I remember being in the studio with DJ Marley Marl. You guys are probably familiar with DJ Marley Marl. He's mentioned on Biggie's Juicy record, Rap Attack, Mr. Magic Marley Marl. Right. But I remember Marley. I remember being around Marley for years and being with him in the studio, and he's we're super revered hip hop DJ, one of the first super producers in hip hop. Was the founder of the Juice Crew, had Big Daddy Kane, Rakim, and all those artists recording at his house or his apartment when he was younger. Actually, I think his sister's apartment, my Aunt Belle, whatever the case. And I hover around him just waiting to see some greatness, just waiting to see it. And I don't know if my expectations were so high that I wanted him to make hit records in front of me, but then I realized something sitting there one day with him, that it was a vibe. He told me that having less options sometimes breeds more creativity. Mm-hmm. I remember him describing the environment that he recorded some of those great hit records in my aunt's house, and it was probably similar to not to the extent, but with the love you might sense of camaraderie to a Rikers Island environment. You know what I mean? When there's brotherhood, when there's sisterhood, when there's just love for everyone around. And it might have been a chaotic environment and less than optimal recording solution inside a project apartment where a lot of those great records, classic hip hop records, were recorded. So I started to think wow, this is the same type of challenges I'm facing here. So the chaos and the obstacles is the way. This is the way to bring out the best recordings, to be able to focus and lock in during this organized chaos and stuff like that. So
I love that. It's incredible. So tell us how the program grew within Rikers, because you started I believe just on Saturdays and then it expanded to 5 days a week.
That's right. Yeah. First it was just something we would do, we would get four Saturdays every 3 months. So it wasn't I didn't stop anything I was doing at the time. And then there was a segue when Rikers was hey, this is for some reason the kids like this music thing. And I think we weren't the first music class because people were allowed to teach music and bring in beats. But I think with the advent of us bringing the iPads at that moment, we were almost an outlier moment where we were with technology and opportunity hit at the same time, where we were allowed to record people for the first time. I think that's what it was. We were the first actual program to actually press record and have these recordings. That basically spread like wildfire, and Rikers began to use this. They began to try to use this as a method to help reward students after they removed solitary confinement. Yeah. Then it began to basically encourage them to keep up good behavior. And so basically as students traveled from different buildings and stuff like that, in order to keep the consistency, they basically had us expand to different buildings throughout the facility. So we went to the RNDC building, which might be known as C74. Went to the EMTC building, GRVC building, RMSC building, which is the women's facility. And all these were beautiful experiences, believe it or not.
Yeah. And I mean, you've shared a little bit of this already, but how have the students, how have the students there generally responded to the program?
In numerous ways. I would say the majority is like happiness. Majority is super, super positive, even when they're not in the best moods. Mm-hmm. I've witnessed super excitement when I show up, and then super displeasure and distrust if I miss like 2 weeks.
Sure.
That's when I got to see that, artists are artists everywhere. Mm-hmm. If I didn't show up because of lack of clearance at the door, at the gate, because of someone outside didn't approve my interface for this week, they take it personal.
Wow.
They take it like, you didn't show up. Yeah. You fronted. You didn't show up for us. So I've witnessed that. I've witnessed some of the transformative power of that music has, or someone's own creativity has. Not even us or the program, it's someone's own creativity that has the transformative power. I witnessed that, and watching people harness their own power in a place where they might feel powerless is it's like us. You know what I mean? That's what we do music for. We create things. We create things, and people see the beauty in us, and people see the I had a Rikers moment. I felt like
seriously.
You know what I mean? That totally just almost distracted me. You know what I mean? Type of vibe.
Well, can you share any memorable examples of your students, being transformed through that experience? I think we know what you mean.
Yeah, for sure. Transformed. I remember a student really having a bad, I guess what they might call, someone getting bad news. There was a student by the name of, I want to say his full government name, but I'm just gonna say there was a student who just came off court. He got sentenced to like 24 years, 25 years, and he wanted to record. Like, he knew he was, at this time, he was in a juvenile facility. He's 18 now. That's when they turn 18. They're gonna be transferred up to another facility and go upstate. The further they get upstate, usually the longer the jail, but the further they get away from to New York, and the closer they get to coming home, they come back downstate, from what I believe. And he recorded, a song about his case before he went upstate, and that was pretty interesting to see him use this as a meditative practice, some sort of, right, before he prepares himself, before he, embarks on this next mission. He wanted to put something down and record something. That's one that comes to mind right now.
Wow.
Yeah.
So powerful. So can you share a little bit how the program united the community, within the scenes that are within Rikers? You said there's different gangs. I was reading about, like, maybe you're in this, this wasn't dorm, but like house or...
Yeah, the dorms too. They call them dorms. They call them houses. No matter where you go, they call them rooms, units. Yeah. They change it up depending on what facility. How did the...
how did the community come together? Because it's like I was reading about how... there's different gangs, like, for lack of a better phrase, there's different cliques, right? So everybody's kind of like in their world, but then we had, it sounds like you built, a unifying music community within that.
Yeah, I would say it happened organically, but what did happen was that I started to notice that certain correctional officers, at first you think correctional officers are going to be the opposite of anything revolving the residents or inmates, or whatever the proper term is to call people, to label the people living in these conditions is. I thought it would be just straight tension between COs and the people, being housed there. But it seems as if the talent that, a student possessed will inspire a correctional officer to be like, hey, man, we got to get this person in this program. You have to come this Saturday. I'm going to get this housing area because this one student you got to hear. He has to get this song down because he's been tapping on the table, recording this song, rapping this song all week. He's ready for you. So once they got involved,
Sorry to interrupt. They're your A&R.
That's exactly. I was just thinking exactly the same. I was going to say that. So they became like the A&Rs. Mm-hmm. They became the A&Rs inside the jail, and I thought that was like really cool. And then even the admin people, the label people, and there's a woman named Tennille Anthony. She's the director of programming, and she's like, you know, the person that's really, you know, making it happen. She goes to the housing areas and makes sure that she lets them know that Audio Pictures is coming. She puts me into the different housing areas, and they make sure that I touch every part of the building, or me and my team touch every part of the building. And yeah, it seems like a collective. People are supporting of the music more than you would think. Yeah.
Amazing.
It seems really cool, man.
Yeah,
really
and
cool.
I was reading. You've gotten so much press as you know, which is well deserved. And I was reading about how, you know, again, people are segregating into race and houses, Definitely. Whatever. But then the different musicians would like high five when they see each other. And
yeah. And then, you know, they know that I have recordings from certain people, so they might, different housing area might ask to hear a song from an opposing gang member because they're just a fan of the music.
Wow.
You know, even when they get dissed by another gang, they're intrigued to hear the diss.
Yeah.
You know, they're just like, they just want to hear what someone else is saying, what they're thinking. And it's interesting. It's interesting that it, like, we became almost like the radio for them, because they know that when we come, when they see Audio Pictures, like, oh, Ryan's here, he got the songs, he got the tunes. So, yo, can you play that so-and-so? Can you play that Coach record one more time, please? Type of vibe. So, you know, it becomes its own little world ecosystem where everyone's hearing each other's creativity, just like you would in a classroom setting for creatives.
And did I also read that some of the Rikers staff and corrections officers even got involved creatively in the program?
That's right. There's some talented people everywhere. Like, you know, there's people with jobs there's people just like us that are pursuing these creative endeavors, but then, you know, also are looking for some sort of security and having a biweekly paycheck. And that they just happen to put on a uniform and do their job, but they're actually musicians, they're actually songwriters, they're actually engineers, they're actually artists at heart. So this program allows them to actually be in a creative environment. There's the particular officer that was like assigned to the studio that was like has his own studio as well outside, and he's just like, he was spending Monday through Friday, instead of like, you know, checking beds and checking dorms, he's actually in the studio updating like Steinberg. He's updating interfaces and stuff like that with his badge and his belt on. He's moving his belt. You know, it's cool. It's cool to see people. So cool. Yeah, and even them, they would actually, a lot of officers would try to record in the studio in between classes.
Wow.
They would try their demos out. They're like kids in a candy store.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, you know, God forbid it's like we treat, you know, everyone as humans.
That's right.
You know, I'm not as educated.
God forbid we do that, right?
Yeah, exactly. I'm not as educated as I should be, but I've definitely seen, you know, pieces on how incarcerated people are treated in Europe, in Nordic countries. They have like apartments and.
I was watching a documentary in Afghanistan about jails over there. And I'm like, yeah, it's just different. I was just like, oh, this is gonna be the most terrible thing in the world. And stuff like, you can get arrested for like having sex and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But if like the guy can get arrested too, like the woman gets arrested, and then if she tells people that the guy had sex, they both got to do 7 years for having premarital sex. I was like, what? Right. But they stay in apartments. People can visit them. Yeah. They have to stop people from stealing furniture, leaving the jail.
Wow.
Yeah, crazy, interesting stuff.
You know, meanwhile, it's like Rikers is like a few miles from LaGuardia whenever
That's
we're
right.
just like
landing.
traveling.
Yeah, as soon as you see it landing, it's crazy.
Yeah. And in some of the things I've read and watched too about how incarcerated people are treated in other countries, you know, when they ask, you know, folks on the street, like, well, how do you think about this? All this money is being spent on them for their apartment and their education. And they're like, well, yeah, we want them to come back to society and we want them to contribute.
That's right.
So how did this work expand to correctional facilities beyond Rikers? I mean, you certainly started at, you know, in the belly of the beast at one of the most notorious places in America. But yeah, share how, because this is expanded elsewhere, right?
Yeah, definitely. As they had the shutdown Rikers campaign, and they were taking the juveniles off of Rikers Island and transfer them to like Horizons in the Bronx and Crossroads in Brooklyn. I believe that as the students got there was a need to have a sense of continuity and the support for them. So it seems as if hey, these kids were on Rikers Island with audio pictures. They're making the news headlines in these new juvenile facilities. It might be worth, getting some programming over there. Not just my program, but there's a bunch of other brilliant programs that work, that do like the hard work.
Sure.
But my program was like the popular program, so they asked us to be over there, and then it actually calmed. It was like calming for them to see us, like, oh, okay, you're here too, man. Do you still have my song? Yeah, I still got your song. Yo, okay, cool. I want to finish that. I want to add to it. So stuff like that. So that's how it began to kind of like spread to other correctional facilities, and then just word of mouth, really, too, at the same time. Different admin people, just like labels, different label heads would go to another label, and sometimes they're the key man clause to a contract or whatever the case, and they're like, hey, I want these artists, over here. As soon as their deal is up, we're gonna buy this deal out. So similar to that. So now they get to a new facility and they're like, we need audio pictures here, and so forth. Yeah.
Well, it sounds like your student became your ambassadors, your evangelists.
Yeah. Or their work, I
love that. So from there, tell us about how your work with the students, how you and the program work with the students after their release at places like Carnegie Hall.
Yeah. So Carnegie Hall. I probably like growing up heard about it, and heard that this is where you go if you're like the top tier musician in the world and stuff like that. But I got the opportunity to collaborate with Carnegie Hall, like on this program they have called the Studio 57 program. It's like an open studio they have on Saturday mornings, where we were able to like go in there and use their resources, their pianos, their digital workstations, and actually invite some of our formerly incarcerated students over there. And it was really cool. We got to meet a bunch of like Carnegie staff and get invited to like recitals and so forth, and it was really grand. Besides that, we have our own reentry program that we have, which we have about 35 to 40 students per year, where they come to our like recording space on 28th Street and Broadway, and they continue the basics of music production. So if the Rikers stuff was like 100, this is like a one-on-one class type of vibe.
Love it.
So yeah.
AP, advanced placement.
Exactly.
Yeah. Moving up.
Indeed.
You have forged a truly innovative and transformative path for others by combining your passions for artist development with rehabilitation. Why is rehabilitation so important to you?
For me, I feel like, I'm not sure if I fully understand the word rehabilitation as I hear it right now. But I think being able to reflect, being able to make adjustments and evolve, is important to me in my process. And I think that the most important thing that I can do is share my process and realize that people also might benefit from reflecting, adding on or taking away certain things like they would a mix, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or arranging a record and arrange their life like music. I think that we all have the power and to kind of regenerate. And I think that's supremely important to people actually bringing them their best selves to any conversation, to any space that they're in. And I think that's why rehabilitation is super important to me, because I believe we all deserve time and deserve the energy to recreate and regenerate.
That's right. And again, so brilliant to combine that with, your passion and talent of music, and then create this revolutionary, transformative experience for so many.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
Absolutely.
You.
And not to be cheesy, but you can do that too. I'm biased, but I run a nonprofit called I Voted that combines music and voting, and it's just okay, well, music is what I can do to help get people to vote, I don't know how to do a million other things.
Right.
So just go out there and do it. So what's next for the Free Studio / Beats, Rhymes, and Justice?
Right now, I would say the next thing, right now we're really trying to tighten up the curriculum. We're really working on digging back in deep. I feel like we're expanding a little bit, and it was just me by myself inside the facility for I would say after the first 2 years, I was by myself for about 3-4 years doing 6 to 7 days a week straight, right? So now I have instructors in there going in there. The program's happening in 3-4 facilities right now as we speak. Mm-hmm. But it seems to like it's changing into something maybe a little bit different than what I thought. So right now we're just in the process of like regenerating. It's almost like in between albums when artists kind of go into like a state of like reclusiveness, you know what I mean, when they're just by themselves, just working on their craft and just figuring things out on the keyboard. That's where we are. We are with it right now. Obviously, we would love to expand, but not at the cost of having a program that isn't effective. Yeah, it's super tricky work with the population we deal with, and with what we really can offer. So we're trying to figure out how to bridge the gap between students and their vision of having a successful career, sustainable career in the music business, you know. Which is also why I chose to be part of this podcast, not specifically just because I was invited, but actually because I actually think it's going to be beneficial for my knowledge to be in conversation with Emily. I think it's super important that in preparing for this, I got to actually listen to the podcast myself. I actually am reading the book because this is probably the next stage, what I can offer, but I can only show what I've been exposed to, what I'm familiar with. So I have to step into uncharted territory with a stage like this. I have to step into uncharted territory through new books and new readings and discipline myself to get through these things so I can basically, hopefully, take one more step in the direction.
Well, anything I can do to help, just say the word. I would love to donate books to your students, and you know, if I can help in any way, let's definitely talk about that. I
got a lot of ideas. For sure. But this right here is helping because I think that it basically also too your dedication to the work actually made this happen. You sending the book, you having this up, you setting this up. By default, I can, now that I'm have a connection with you, I'm able to even pass special students along the information, whether it's through book or whether it's actually through meeting you. Carolyn, who works with me with the Next Gen, one of her assignments was to read your book as soon as you sent it. You know what I mean? And she loved it. She was like, and I was like, well, before we give it to the students, I need to read it. You know what I mean? Because that's part of what we do. We want to just comb through everything before we just pass it. You know, so stuff like that. So.
Wow. That means so much.
Yeah. You do great work. You do great work. And you've been on sharp for years, you know, and I really appreciate what you do, truly.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. So last question before we get into the vegetarian meat of this episode. How is your new recording studio coming along?
It's coming along good. It's basically it's a penthouse space on 28th Street and Broadway. We have 3 small production rooms and an outdoor event space where we can like have live performances and stuff like that. It's cool, right directly in front of the Empire State Building. It's like a great view. It's really cool. But it's coming along good. The idea is it's supposed to be a smart studio in a home away from home. So we have this like Dante capable studio where each room can connect to each other room. Similar to like houses of worship have this Dante setup, whatever the case. We're really trying to hone in on the home studio environment, on the intimate environment. So it takes a lot of thought. I have to spend a lot of time there in this space to come up with new ideas. When I'm super busy and moving around and traveling a lot, the progress on the studio slows down. I feel like I have to like crash out there, spend nights, almost repeat the same process I did when I was going through what I call my lean years at my home studio. It's the same process when you're just trying to get back in shape for an event or for a run or for any type of sports event. You have to kind of like go back to the training, the basics. So yeah, I'm in there thinking of how the studio should be used, where keyboard placement, where should these monitors go? If someone wants to have a laptop, how easily can they plug in and connect to this room, and then can we repeat that for these next 3 rooms? That's kind of like, you know, the process we're in. So yeah, it's cool. We plan on opening up this summer.
Great.
Yeah. So I definitely want to invite everybody, you know what I mean, to pull up if y'all interested, for sure.
For sure. I look forward to visiting.
Sure. Yeah. Come check it out. It's
amazing.
Right. It's not as cool as this, but.
This is pretty cool. So, okay. So now we're going to get into the recording section of this episode. So whether you're like 12 and first getting going, or maybe you're 100 and you're, starting to play around with digital recording, let's start with the basics. So if folks have access to a smartphone, how can they record on their own?
I would say off top, if you have the first thing I would do is if you have ideas, get your ideas down with maybe even the voice note app or a voice memo app. I use something called Evernote, which I pay for like a yearly subscription. And what I do is take pictures of art. I basically, if I hear melodies, I record melodies on them, record instrumentals. And that's just the basics. If you want to take a step further and record, I'm not sure what, I know everyone's probably heard of GarageBand and something like that, but there's a lot of an app called BandLab that a lot of like upcoming artists are using to just record music quickly. I use Cubase in the studio, professional studio, but there's an app called Cubasis, which is basically an iOS version of Cubase, which is a full-on DAW. Inside that, you can actually track vocals, you can record MIDI, you can sample, you can use third-party apps. You can do a bunch of cool things like that. For sampling, you can use Splice. Splice, you guys probably know is a desktop app as well for sampling sounds and bringing them into your DAW. But you can also use Splice on the phone and download samples on the phone and then import them into your DAW device on your phone. So you actually don't need to be on a laptop or at your browser. There's Sample Crate where you can store your samples and preview your samples. So for the demo process, you can use voice notes or memos or Evernote. For the recording process, you can use some of those DAWs that they have for the iOS devices. And then you can also, if you're just shuffling, you can use Splice. And then you have your Spotifys and your titles and your Apple Music for your daily inspiration and SoundCloud for creating playlists and so forth. So. That's
the thing. It's like, if you have access to a smartphone, we take for granted that we have computers in our pocket.
It's actually a computer.
And a microphone.
And then, but then I think repurposing it, right? I think repurposing the phone for how you perceive it, right?
Yeah.
My phone is organized into sections. I have a studio section with all my studio apps. I have a finance section with all my finance apps. I have a health section for everything to do with monitoring the heart or apps affiliated with my doctor. I have my fitness section for everything doing with the fitness programs and apps I have. So I basically try to treat this as an office device.
Yeah. Exactly. And I'll just add, we also like Spire as far as working on smartphones. That's a free multi-track recording app by our friends at Isotope.
Fire. Yeah, I know about that as well.
Cool.
I just haven't used. I usually don't speak on things I haven't used, but I do know about Spire.
Great.
And I love Isotope stuff, by the way.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, they're pretty cool.
Definitely.
Yeah,
and now you know it's good because it's being co-signed by Ryan.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And also Keezy is a free and simple sampler to record on your iPhone.
Yeah, I can definitely pass the list. I have like 20 ideas in my head off top, so I'm just trying to keep it as brief as I can. Yeah.
Well, keep it coming, no pressure.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to go too deep, because obviously there's probably more questions coming. You know what I mean? So I'm also trying to be mindful of time as we comb through, because I can be long-winded.
Cool.
Yeah.
No, you're not long-winded, by the way.
I can be.
Okay.
Capability.
I hear
possible.
You. Yeah. So if someone has, if you have access to a laptop, whether it's yours, a friend's, at school, or a library, we've referenced DAWs a few times. So what's a DAW again?
A DAW is a digital audio workstation.
Yep.
Right? So you have an audio workstation. Some of them were analog back in the day, 2-inch reels, or they have, and then this is a digital audio workstation. They have physical digital audio workstation. Then they have apps that turn the computer into a digital audio workstation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you're going to need a DAW as well as headphones if you want to remix, if you want to mix, if you want to work on a variety of genres. So as far as DAWs go, what do you recommend?
I recommend picking a DAW, actually doing some research before you pick your DAW. I actually recommend you thinking about what you want to do. For a lot of the film scoring stuff, I see people use Cubase. A lot of like Hans Zimmer and stuff like that use Cubase. I'm a Cubase user, not because I wanted to be a film composer, but because I downloaded the bootleg version of it back in the day, and I thought I had the poor man's Pro Tools. Until I began realizing that Cubase is not the poor man's Pro Tools. They actually created they invented the VST format. You know what I mean? Cubase is a super efficient DAW for mixing. If you're going to get deep into mixing, I would say Pro Tools and Cubase, followed by Logic and maybe Studio One for the mixing capabilities. If you're like a producer who travels and is also a DJ and stuff like that, I would recommend Ableton Live. I remember reading somewhere that you should pick DAWs based on where you're going, your trajectory, and some of the DAWs have a trajectory, they have a particular consumer in mind, so it might be a traveling EDM artist who is producing music on the run, who needs a live controller, who needs to be off the computer and stuff like that, so Ableton might be a great fit because of that and the new released Ableton, the Push 3 and stuff like that. If you're maybe if you're interested in just getting beats done, just beats, obviously, Ableton's another option as well. But a lot of people use FL Studio because of the channel rack, because it's so quick. You can actually get ideas, become from idea to execution in a quick half a second. When it comes to Pro Tools, it's industry standard for probably a couple of reasons. I heard that the owners of Avid, the parent company of Avid, basically, I heard this from someone at Steinberg who used to work at Avid, said that Pro Tools is the industry standard by default because the companies that own all the film company studios basically just installed Avid and Pro Tools into all the recording studios. They had first dibs on what got recorded in there, what got put in there. I don't know if I articulated that correctly. I mean, accurately with clarity, but that's what they were saying. So, Pro Tools, I would say if you're just interested in becoming a recording engineer, if you as far as a producer, hybrid, Logic might be a good source. And if you're just thinking of moving forward, something like Bitwig or something like Reaper, if you're really trying to get into different ways of producing music and side chaining and adding different modules into your production. There's so many ways. I try to keep abreast of as many DAWs as I can without losing focus on my main craft, which is my main choice DAW, which is Cubase. I'm a Cubase user. But the producers on my team use the other DAWs. But yeah, there's a lot of great functionality in all of these DAWs. It's about finding out where you are going and then aligning yourself with a company, a software company that's aligning with your goals, similar to how you would probably do if you were a songwriter, aligning yourself with a PRO, right? So if you're into film and stuff like that, maybe ASCAP might be the PRO, and if you're into maybe getting music placed as a rapper and stuff like that, you might want to see where the rappers, what PROs affiliated with that. So I would say find people in every segment of your career that align with your goals.
And great segue for the next episode, because if you don't know what a PRO is, it's a performing rights organization, and we're going to cover all of that on Thursday. As I mentioned, music publishing isn't scary or confusing. And also, as far as DAWs go, there's, of course, an infinite amount of information on YouTube as well. So you can check out tutorials on Recording Revolution. You can check out Pensato's Place.
Love Pensato's Place and Recording Revolution. I'm a Pensato's Place fanatic. Yeah.
Love it. Yeah. And if you want to learn about plugins, FabFilter has a lot of strong tutorials.
Definitely.
And I see some head nodding.
The Pro EQ, I'm sure you guys know about the Pro EQ and stuff like that. Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So you also need to get headphones. So what do you recommend for that?
Similar. Headphones are based on, I say purchase most of your purchases based on your need, right? Mm-hmm. There are headphones that are great for recording vocals. You might want to have some closed back headphones that keep the sound in for just recording, so there's not too much a bleed into the microphone when you're recording. Even though they have beautiful companies like Isotope that can de-bleed, and you know what I mean, and different apps that can take the bleed out of the headphones. But you might want to have headphones for that. If you're traveling a lot while you're recording, you might want to have noise canceling headphones. Now, if you're mixing, that's a different topic. If you're mixing, you might want to have some open back headphones and invest in some mixing headphones that are conducive to your mixing environment. That might be able to help you space things out as the way you would like to in a mix. So in my studio, stuff like for the program and stuff, right? For example, for just basic songwriting and ideation, I use some cheap headphones. You know what I mean? It's just about getting the ideas down at that point. You know, I'm not really concerned about someone panning something to the left or to the right or adding reverb or a sort of type of delay or something at that point. I just am interested in you writing the best music. Now, if you hearing it in the best particular space, like an audiophile, if you're an audiophile, you love hearing music at this specific volume and stuff like that, then I would suggest, like, all right, cool, maybe these mixing headphones might be great for you to get started. But if you're a recording artist, if you're just recording music, at that point, I would use some regular headphones for that. You know what I mean? Just for recording and getting your ideas down. But if you're mixing, I would invest in mixing headphones.
Yeah, that's great. And there's obviously a huge range of prices. But,
Definitely.
you know, if you're just getting going, you know, I also wanted to mention a.k.a. K250 Studio semi-open headphones are like $69. So, yeah. So if folks have access to a soundproof space, what kind of monitor speakers do you recommend?
Well, that depends on the size of your space. From what I've been learning over the years is similar to like what I said earlier about purpose. If you have a room that is a very small room, if you're recording in a basement or a bedroom and you have neighbors, maybe getting an 8-inch or 10-inch a speaker might be overkill. Because even like I think a 40 hertz frequency is about 14 feet at that frequency. So you'll get a lot of bass buildup in your room. So you probably want to get speakers that are fit for your room, just like you would get clothes that fit for your lifestyle or for what you want to express, similar to that. I would recommend recording, if you can, it depends on the space. If you're in a soundproof, acoustically treated space, then you would place the speakers maybe 33% off the wall, you know what I mean, or something like a certain percentage off the wall to maximize the use of the room, the space of the room.
That's great. And my tips, I cannot give myself credit for at all. I co-wrote this chapter with my friend Bobby Lord. So Bobby also wanted to mention the KRK Rocket starts at like $150. So
yeah, and those are great for starting out, for ideas. You know, I recommend starting out the iLoud micro monitors if you're in a small space. They're really durable. They're easy to travel with. They can be used as reference monitors. They are also Bluetooth, and they can be mounted as well. And they run for about $250. I would definitely recommend those for like starting out if you're in a small space. And then if you're moving up, I would say anything from Adams. I'm a huge Genelec fan. My studio, I have a bunch of Genelec speakers in my studio. Find test speakers out and go to like Sam Ash or go to Guitar Center and listen and check them out and find reference records. And try to find out what speakers fit your environment and actually translate the music that you love really well.
That's great. Such a good point. So assuming you want to record any, your voice or any sort of instruments, you'll also need a microphone as well as a recording interface to get the mic signal into the DAW on your laptop. So what kind of interfaces do you recommend?
Right now, I would say the interface that I would recommend. I like the Apollo stuff right now. I'm a big fan of the Apollo. I have a bunch of twins in some of my rooms, Apollo twins, the quad core. We also use the Volt, it's the low end version for some of the travel, the voltage, the Apollo Volt, the UAD Volt. that has some like warm pre's and stuff like that gives some of the warm sound that you might find in some analog gear. I also recommend even the Focusrite stuff. I see a lot of people with the Scarletts, you know what I mean? For like pre-production, people like use those. And at first I was just looking like wondering how great the quality is, but they sound pretty cool. They sound like they get the job done, you know? And that's just like for like a single like, you know, project use. All the way up to like Pro Tools HDX. We have an Pro Tools, I think it's the MRX or MRTX, something like that. We have this like Dante capable Pro Tools rig in our main room. That's cool too, you know what I mean? But the AD, DA converters, digital audio converters are really high quality on those interfaces. And I try to pair interfaces with microphones, like good microphones and stuff like that. I really try to my best to like test things out for the sound you're going for, right? For the sound you're going for.
Yeah, and I actually have the price on Focusrite Scarlett Solo.
Yep.
So that can start at like $110.
There you go. You get started. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And you mentioned microphones. What kind of mics do you recommend? Which,
you know what?
Sorry, that obviously has a.
Yeah.
This all has such a wide array.
Based on use, based on purpose, right? For instance, are you a vocalist or are you a guitarist that uses an amp? You know what I mean? Like that changes how you might approach certain microphones. Right now, I'm a fan of this company called SE Electronics. It's a Chinese microphone company, but they build great mics. They have a flagship microphone that's a collaboration with Rupert Neve. That's like probably comparable, in my opinion, probably to like a U87 or something, like a Neumann U87. But I use my favorite mic right now is the SE Gemini. It's a double tube microphone. It's a transparent tube. It's really clear. But on a basic level, I use the a.k.a. 414s. I use the SE Gemini 2300 because they have clarity. But I picked up the SE 2300 because I read that Amy Winehouse recorded her Back to Black album on the SE 2200, the previous model. And since I had similar artists with a similar vocal texture coming into the studio, I decided that would be a great microphone to have because in my mind, I wanted to record her like Amy Winehouse. Yeah. Right? But it ended up being a great rap microphone for vocals.
Cool. And
it was only about $400. But yeah, I'm constantly checking different microphones out. I was in San Mas yesterday because I'm looking for like different mounts for microphones I haven't used because there's some ribbon microphones that I saw, some vintage ribbon microphones I had in my studio that I realized haven't been used, and I learned that you can use them for vocals. So now I'm gonna try those out with different preamps, which is another step in the vocal chain that's between the interface. Some interfaces have preamps in them already, but there's some pre's I want to try with these different microphones.
That's great. And the Shure SM57 is $99.
That's right.
Is that?
It's a 58. Okay. Sorry. Yeah, the 57. Yeah. No, yeah. And this is a good mic too, right here.
There you go. Thanks, Tower Labs.
Yeah, and this is the beta one, so I know this one. I have this one as well. This is the other version of this is a 58A, which has a more directional, feel of picking a mic pickup, you know what I mean, compared to the previous model. So this is great for if you're recording in a room with sound. Sometimes you don't want to record in the vocal booth. Sometimes you want to record while the music is playing. So this is a stage mic. It's only going to get feedback once I push it to the speaker or something like that, right? So if you're at your home studio, wherever you are, and you want to record like in a jam environment, you want to sing and put up melodies and still not get too much bleed, you can actually get one of these mics, which is maybe about $179, $159. It's probably $20 more than the other microphone. And what you got over there?
Warm audio. That's what.
That's right.
We didn't plan that. Right. Yeah, I was gonna mention.
It looks like an a.k.a. 414 though. It looks like it.
Well, I was gonna mention that next.
It looks like the a.k.a. But it looks good though.
Thank you. So Warm Audio makes affordable replicas of famous and more expensive mics. So maybe that's why.
That's what I sense it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can feel it. It looks like, yes, definitely. So this reminds me of an a.k.a. 414 by the polar patterns on it. I was wondering why I didn't have one in front of me.
Well, so again, Bobby Lord helped me write this chapter, and I just wrote this book in my bedroom, self-released it. So anything I mentioned in the book is totally genuine. And Warm Audio really stood out to me when Bobby suggested that. I'm like, oh, this is cool. It's like an Austin-based company, and they do replicas of vintage mics. And they gave me this mic now.
That's fire.
Yeah,
I like
so
it. It's beautiful. I like it.
Totally.
I like it.
So again, genuine endorsement, but
I like it. I like it.
Again, I'm glad it got your endorsement too.
Yeah. Looks good. I want to test it out. Try it.
For sure.
Yeah. To be honest, I was thinking in my head, I was like, I wonder how her voice is gonna sound on that microphone. You know, I was thinking about that.
Better than it has on previous seasons. I'll bet that.
Nah, it works though. The content is there though.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like that you got going. That's like, you know what I mean? That's what I like about you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so you've recorded. Now moving on to mixing. What is mixing?
Actually, I would put a step in between there.
Okay.
Editing, right? After you recorded your ideas, I would basically get into an editing phase. You know what I mean? You do your best as a creative. You create, and then just like in film, you would edit down, right? Mm-hmm. Maybe even before you color, right? Yeah. So I would get into editing, arranging your tracks, arranging. You know, trying to find the best way to arrange your song, and then even inside arranging your song, picking your vocal takes, picking the right parts of the vocal that you might need, cleaning up unnecessary audio to help with the mixing. And then before, as a prep for mixing, I like to gain stage. Is anybody familiar with gain staging? There's a cool technique called the pink noise technique, where you just play a pink noise signal on one track. And pink noise has an even distribution of signal throughout the whole audio spectrum. I believe we can hear up to maybe 20 hertz maybe, but it has an even distribution of energy throughout the spectrum. So the concept is to get a quick, rough, light mix is what you can do is have this mix noise playing at negative 18 dB, which is analog 0, right? You guys can probably check that out. And just have this pink noise sound just playing, and then you can actually move your track up to barely right above, when you can, it's barely audible above it. Move your snare, move different elements of your track right above the pink noise. And the vocals, you can probably, the lead vocal move above, so it can be audible. And then after that is done, you can just basically remove the pink noise track, and you should have an even balance to start your mix. And I would do this, I would edit, then I would go to this part, and then I would do my low and high passes, right? I would basically just cut out the frequencies that are not necessary. So if you have a snare and you only need the top of the snare, you probably don't need anything from 300 hertz down. So you can even you can do a high pass on that with maybe like a hard knee or soft knee or something like that. And I would just basically do that process as part of a creative process to set up for mixing. You know what I mean? At that point, you can set up for mixing, and then you can color things with different compressors, color things with different saturation, and you can color things and move things around with automation as well at that stage. But I would definitely start with the editing, going into peak noise and maybe low and high pass filters to cut off so you can have some clarity in your mix, and then I would probably go into some of the coloring.
That's great. And what it sounds like you're describing, which is, I think, really important in the music industry, is like, if you can make the other person's job easier, it's going to be better for, like, right? The mixer can focus more on the mixing if you clean it up a little bit, it sounds like.
What I would say, the editor to the mixing is more so like assistant editor to an editor. In the Adobe Creative Cloud, the Creative Suite in Adobe, they had this app called Prelude. They just discontinued it because I don't think not that it wasn't great, it didn't have a huge user base. So that's probably why they discontinued it. But it was a app that allows you to basically set up edits. If you had a 5 minutes, just for instance, podcast might be two hours. So just say maybe Emily has an idea of the parts that she knows she wants, but the editor doesn't. The editor might not be here. The editor's not present in this room with us, but Emily might say, hey, you know what? I need this part. Ryan was long-winded here. Let me cut this here. Let me cut to this question and set it up for the editor. And then it was like an app dedicated to prepping the edit for an editor. So in so many ways, sound editing and balancing your mix and maybe gain staging is prepping it to see if you want to mix it yourself, and maybe prepping it to see if you want someone else to mix it. Because what you'll sense, what I've discovered, and I tested this out with classic recordings. What I do with the students and it might be worth you guys might trying this out to see if it works, right? Is download some, if you can, some classic stems. I have stems from Thriller. I have Human Nature stems. I have Marvin Gaye, What's Going On stems. I have Bob Marley, Is This Love stems. I have Tupac staring through my rear view stems. And I test this on these records because you know the reference. It's on Spotify. You see the remastered version is boosted up like about 4 dB. You know what they sound like. So to test these theories, I use these recordings because I can easily reference and see how it worked for this time period. And maybe you can even push the limits of them for this time period within your spirit, your setup. So yeah, I test stuff like that on that all the time.
So smart. That's great. So how should folks get started mixing, you know, whether it's for themselves or for others?
I say what I just mentioned right there would be one of the ideas. If you can, it sometimes depends how savvy you are with finding it, you know, and finding it. Maybe I can drop some links to some stems and stuff like that. But I would basically download stems. Even some of the DAWs have what they call demo projects. When you download a new DAW, they'll say, I'll download this app, and then here's a demo project for such as. I know a lot of people just skip past these demo projects because it's not their song, not their type of genre, but they're usually like a great showcase of how the DAW can work.
Yeah.
And it's good to kind of like deconstruct some of the records. So I would start mixing by basically, you know, once you have your headphones and once you have like an ideal like kind of work environment, and just sit there and work with your project and sit there and test the levels and, you know, find good reference records for what you would like to sound like, and then maybe try to see what it is you love about them, and then try to find it is what you love about your recordings and try to highlight what you love.
Absolutely. Does music always need mixing?
No. Sometimes the music is just, but this is just natural off the cuff. It doesn't need mixing based on, for a lot of reasons, how it impacts you. You know, I remember when I was young, I used to listen to like mixtapes and radio stuff that wasn't mixed. I grew up listening to like DJ Clue on the mixtape on Hot 97, taping it at night and then waking up in the morning and playing the tape back. I remember I used to sell bootleg CDs before I even did my interns at the labels and stuff. I used to sell bootleg CDs on the streets, mixtapes, you know, make my own copies and sell them in the stores. All I cared was for the exclusive Jay-Z record, exclusive DMX record. All I cared was about hearing the actual content. I actually, at the time, didn't understand mixing, and it wasn't required, you know, for me. But as I got older, a more seasoned ear, and I realized that, hey, if I want to prove to my friend that this song is so great, it's not translating the way it is on my little Panasonic speaker the way it is in his stereo. That's when I realized, oh, wow, Dr. Dre's mixes sound a lot different than Nas' mixes. And they sound a lot different than these other mixes. Wow, look what he's doing with the stereo field. Wow, Quincy Jones and Bruce Swedine's mixes, those songs were recorded in the 70s, in the 80s. Why do they sound better than the songs that the Rough Riders recorded in the 2000s? And to me, you know what I mean? So that's when I realized that, oh, wow, that even, you know, depending on translation, I think mixing is important for translating your idea through multiple speakers and multiple, you know, spaces. But is it necessary for your enjoyment? No. You can just have something hot off the press and enjoy it. Enjoy the roughness of it, just like you can have some like charred kale or something. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
But it's true. It goes back to getting your art together, right? Like you don't necessarily need to mix or, you know, add things just because you think you need to. Like the student who's like, oh, this one will be great for the club. You know? Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. As needed.
Yeah.
As needed. And purpose in certain music. And I learned this from a producer named Large Professor. He said certain music is just made for him. You know what I mean? Certain music you're just gonna make for yourself. You know, not everything has to be for consumption, for consumer consumption type of thing. You can't make songs for yourself. You can make music for you. You know, you can make podcasts for yourself. You don't have to release everything, you know, type of thing, whatever
it's
the case.
True.
Yeah.
But I would be so curious to hear some of that music that people make for themselves, because to me, that's like what's most pure, right?
Yeah. Or it might not work with their fan base or
Sure.
with what they got accustomed to doing. And one thing I do want to say, while we all have the time to like spend time in these venues and these events, this is like a great time to kind of do your best studying, because when you and you guys might have a careers already rolling already, or careers that have been moving for the longest, but I've noticed that's pretty difficult once you're really on the move and showing up to venue after venue after venue and venue to kind of pick up new skills. So this is like a perfect time to pick up a lot of skill set. You know, pick up a lot of ideas and hone in. If you want to learn the keys or learn some melody, do it now. If you want to learn mixing, spend time doing it now, because once things are rolling, it might be difficult to get back to that super studious state.
Yeah, and not to go on too much of a tangent, but like, you know, as AI evolves and like, you know, AI mixing evolves and stuff, I think it's, and I'm not as skilled as I'm not skilled at all in recording, but I think it's important to understand what you're doing so you can use those tools instead of just using the tools and maybe it's weird and like robotic or something, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. AI has, like, I've chose to let it inspire me to be better.
Yeah.
You know, like someone that's like really a talented musician. Seeing a talented musician in the room could be super scary at times. Seeing a super talented singer or super talented anybody that has that it factor could be super scary at times. But it could also motivate you to be like, oh, no, I'm gonna get my skill, get my chops up. So that's how I look at AI. It makes it, instead of wanting to rely on it totally, I actually want to tighten up my craft. I'm not trying to be John Henry. You know what I'm saying? You know, racing against the you know, the train or anything like that, the steel engine.
Yeah.
But I definitely want to tighten up what it is I do.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I think like, I mean, that's like the ultimate technology, but I think with any technology, it's what you do with it.
You know, harnessing stuff. I think the more you know about your craft, you're allowed to harness it more.
Yes.
Through the technology, right?
Yeah.
I feel like now, since I came up in the rap and hip hop environment, I realized that I should have maybe went to band class in 7th grade instead of, you know, playing basketball or whatever the case may be, you know, because I feel like, I missed out on a lot of the music theory stuff when I was young, and now I'm trying to play catch up. And I realized that some of the DAWs I mentioned, the more I have an understanding of music theory, the more it allows me to harness the energy or the technology that the DAWs are moving forward with. So I guess the same thing might apply to AI. The more you put work into yourself, and the more you feed like a chat GPT, or the more you know, might mess with isotopes, artificial intelligence, recording algorithms or mixing algorithms, you'll be able to harness it more the more you have an understanding of it.
I'm probably biased as an athlete, but don't sell yourself short, because I would also say like the work ethic, the time management, the teamwork teamwork skills you learned, in sports, and not necessarily in band.
Yeah. No, that part I love. That part I love. I just probably would have did a little bit more of it.
Yeah.
You know, I was more like anti, band, choir.
Yeah.
What? I'm going outside, man. Type of like student. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But maybe it's my own bias, because my only regret in life is not taking AP English.
Really?
I never thought I would be an author, and that would be nice to have those skills to fall back.
Yeah, you got a couple books, and
So.
I heard about I listened to your chapters of how you edited and you took time, and then so-and-so didn't even read it.
Yep.
Oh, I could have known.
Wow, you have been paying attention.
Yeah, I've been digging in. I've been digging in. Nah, it was great. It's great stuff. Yeah. It's like the same recording process, the same thing. Yeah. I feel you. That's how I feel about that. The way you feel about AP English is how I feel about music theory. That's how I feel about it.
Totally.
Yeah. Now that I'm on stage, it's like, I gotta practice something. You know what I mean? They're gonna be like, if I touch them drums, they're like, he's a fraud. You know what I mean?
No.
Type of vibe.
Well, it's working out for both of us. So
We'll figure it out.
I think it's okay. Okay, so just to wrap this section, and then we'll do Q&A. So now we're on to mastering. What is mastering?
From my understanding, mastering is what they call the icing on the cake. It's what allows you to, in comparison, if you're putting together a project, on one plane, if you're putting together an EP or a project, it allows your different recordings recorded in different environment and mixed by different people to sound cohesive, right? It also allows your mix to be played at the same, hopefully, volume as another mix that's in the consumer market. You might want to get songs mastered before you give it to your distributor or something like that. And mastering is another process where it's like they basically can take the 2-track, or sometimes it's just like the vocals and instrumental, and the engineer would like EQ that, add some sparkle, some brightness to your mixes, and give it a sheen, another shine, and reimagine it. You know, they might have some like different compressors and limiters they put on the stereo bus to help your track articulate its own vision, and give your song its own personality on top of that. You know, definitely would say it's more so like the finishing on the furniture, or the shining of a furniture piece to present it to the world. And I believe it changes. And some people are a fan. The same question you asked me about mixing. Some people are a fan of mastering. Most people are. They just know, I got to get my songs mastered. Mm-hmm. But I've spoken to engineers who've had their original tracks remastered because they were like completed about 20, 30 years ago. Yeah. And the remaster is like boosted up. And if you bring it into the DAW, if you just bring it in, it's all peaking. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. There isn't any much headroom. And that basically affects the dynamic range of the recording, which is the original acoustic personality of the recording. Yeah. Right? Because your recordings have what they call it, I believe in an acoustic personality, right? Mm-hmm. So just like you have your own fingerprint, your recordings have their own print of how subtle nuances that make the recording unique, mm-hmm. right? So if there's a fade in or a fade out, or if there's the release of tension, sometimes the mastering can boost that up where it wasn't intended to be boosted that way, but it's only intended to be boosted now. So this record that was released in the early 90s can compete with this new record that was released in the 2020s, right? Just so when you hear it, you don't think it's worse, because I believe consumers believe that once they hear things louder, mm-hmm. they think things are better, mm-hmm. right? And mastering can help you stand out in the crowd, but on some recordings it can actually, take away some of the subtleties and the dynamic range of some of the work that you've created.
Amazing. And you alluded to some of this, but what should folks keep in mind while they're mastering, or when they're mastering?
I think they should keep in mind the original purpose of their recording. Yeah. The original purpose of the art. I think that's what should be in mind, because that might aligning the creative process with that, so that's translated clearly, mm-hmm. might be the ticket, not necessarily just on the data and stats. You might need to meet a certain loudness mm-hmm. Meter in a mix, and you might need to meet a certain criteria for stereo width and depth and so mm-hmm. forth. But you don't want to probably fall into the idea of just imitating a track because it ruled the clubs last year. And I know we mentioned clubs, and I love club music in those scenes, mm-hmm. But you definitely want to make sure that you're probably being as creative as you can with the results you're looking for.
Yeah, so ultimately where the music is going to be heard.
Definitely, that's super important. Yeah, similar to, and you help them drive that point again, similar to like purchasing your equipment. Mm-hmm. When you purchase your equipment, you want to make sure that you're purchasing equipment that's aligned with your goals when you're picking your mm-hmm. DAW. So when you're mastering, you also want to look for mastering engineers or similar songs that are mastered that are similar to things that resonate with you.
Exactly. And again, you alluded to this as well, but does one always need to master their music?
Once again, I would say no. I think that some of this process becomes, it could trap us. You know mm-hmm. what I mean? I've been through times like when I was offered that deal that publishing deal at Sony, yeah. I got offered those deals with the songs not even being mixed or mm-hmm. mastered, right? I was really hesitant to take meetings because I wanted to be known as a producer as well at the time, not just someone I was rapping. So I was like, no, the songs aren't ready. Don't play them. Sure. Don't play them for such and such. And sometimes I was right and sometimes I was wrong, right? Sometimes I was right and the person would be like, listen, I know this guy, I know his ear, I know he's into this, he gets it, trust me, it doesn't need to be mixed. Yeah. And at the time, my little bit of mix wouldn't have made a difference if they mm-hmm. liked me or not, right? And then there were times where they were treating me as just a rap artist and I wanted to be known as the mixer and producer as well. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So I can get one of those cool Grammys like for audio engineering, like Imogen Heap or something. You know what I'm saying? Some like, you know, I want like with John Mayer, I wanted to get one of those like things off. But and then there was times where they would hear the stuff and be like, yeah, this is a great song. Yeah, I'm gonna call my friend at so-and-so studio and we're gonna have them mix it. And I'd just be like, I knew we shouldn't have fucking played that song. You know what I mean? Party, you know what I mean? Type of vibe. But yeah, I think that you don't have to stay. I think you can make your own path. True, like, you know what I mean. You can. It's cool to know the rules, and sometimes you can break them, or you can play by the rules, but just like be real ferocious with them, and just, you know, maneuver how you want. Sometimes you can mix and master. A lot of the DAWs we spoke about have what they call mastering effects and third-party plugins that you can use within inside the DAW, which will, for the most part, probably get your music to a place where it's presentable enough to play for A&R ears, friends' ears, and even maybe at a party and something like that. But yeah, I would say there's some also, like, you know, I'm sure it's coming. You know, we're gonna discuss this, but there's different ways to master. You can either buy mastering programs. Steinberg has one called Wavelab. Isotope has, I believe it's the Ozone series and Isotope, where they have referencing and stuff like that and built into the mastering. But yeah.
Well, and, you know, I just want to point out, too, that's not something I'd really considered as far as, you know, who you're playing your music for, or who's hearing, you know, because when I said, like, where the music will be heard, I'm thinking, like, is it, you know, AirPods? Is it on the radio? But the reason the publishing folks were like, no, you don't have to mix it.
Because the writing.
It's the songwriting.
Yeah, they're concerned with the songwriting. Exactly. Yeah, I was saying that, yeah, they don't care about the mix because they care about the songwriting.
100%.
They're just trying to get the record. You know what I mean? Exactly. So, yeah. It depends. So, and on that case, you might not need mastering. If you're a songwriter, the voice memo might be just enough off your phone. You might not even need to have a DAW. You might could just, you know, go right to your voice memo, hum your melody, sing your melody, and, you know, and go right, you know, and go right to the publisher with it, and it might work.
That's right.
For sure.
So, any other comments on mastering software?
Yeah. I would say if you're not willing to invest in like buying out the full software, either from Steinberg or Isotope, you can probably go to Splice and rent to own. They have like a rent to own solution for plugins. I believe Isotope Ozone is up there, and then there's like online mastering solutions as well. I believe I think Lander might still do online mastering and stuff like that. You can test a bunch of cool things out, you know?
I love it.
Yeah.
Last question from me. How can folks support your incredible work?
You know what? I would say the best way to support the work that we're doing, we're actually got to think about that question. Actually got to think about that. You know, what's the best way folks can support? I would say if you're talented and if you feel like you would love to, like, you know, be a part of it, we have a program where we like are training instructors to do this type of work. We actually are building the recording studio. So any maybe equipment that you guys might have thrown away, you know, stuff like that, can be used to maybe be passed down to some of our star students who are looking to build their own studios. If you're interested in finding a way to help spread your art and your love for your craft, and you feel like, you know, hey, being a teaching artist might be something I might be interested in doing, hit us up. We're at audiopictures.nyc. Or the new website, audio.pictures. And fill out some contact info or just share some insight. Or if you have any ideas of like how to reach students and how to teach things in a more effective way, if you have insight on mixing and mastering any of these questions, or if you have a wonderful book or a wonderful podcast, you know, please reach out and connect. I think that's the best way to help, truly.
Incredible. Truly. So do we have any questions for Ryan? If you do, you can come up to the mic and introduce yourself. Yes, our A+ student.
Oh, wow, pleasure.
Hey, Ryan, thanks for coming.
Pleasure.
Really,
Thank you.
Really enjoyed the talk, and like I didn't even know about the Rikers thing. That's so cool.
Thank you.
Is any of that music out that you guys did on Rikers?
No, there's snippets online in some press that I've done. There's some snippets in the BBC documentary that I produced with BBC and a radio show. But the plan is to actually release a lot of the music. We're just trying to figure things out. It's actually why I'm here, because I definitely want to take this next step with my students and learning a lot of what Emily's been sharing with the world for the past couple of years.
Cool.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would love, but if you would love to hear some of the music, we have stuff at the studio. You can always come by and come check it out if you're interested. For sure. There's some great recordings that I believe that are super unique.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah,
and then what about like volunteer opportunities to like be involved with that, like going to Rikers?
We have a summer internship that starts in mid-July. It's about 6 weeks, and it's an opportunity to kind of like get involved with some of the work that we have at the recording studio, and work with some of the students there. And then if that goes well, we have a process where we actually can get some of the volunteers into the facility and for the fall, and just and come and see what that world is like and be able to share.
Cool.
Yeah. Cool.
Appreciate
Solid.
Wow. Incredible. Anyone else? We covered it. We're recording expert. Get up there.
Right.
This is our other A+ student.
All right, solid. I want to come join this class, man. I'm about to come sit in this seat.
Hi, my name is Drew.
Peace,
Question
Drew.
is there anything that you can suggest during the editing phase that will allow your music, or that will help guarantee that your music is strong for people that are listening on earpods, or that, at the end of the line? Like, let's see, even if you're doing something as routine as just posting to Instagram or something, is there anything that you can do at that level? Maybe at the mastering stage, you kind of touched on it, just to make sure that it's going to sound okay on the other end, because sometimes it sounds like one thing, while you're working on it, and then you're horrified.
Got you, yeah. I mean, two things. And one thing I learned from my colleague Paul, who's sitting over there, who's standing over there, rather. He was sitting on his feet. Is in the editing phase, after like we do some of the pink noise, I was telling you, having the pink noise just to get the overall balance of stuff between the different elements. What you can do is go right to the master bus, even before you even get to like the plugins and stuff like that, and throw some nice like saturation and compressors, or like right onto the master bus, and you can use that with like a maximizer to just kind of get a ballpark idea of how your song will sound. Because the master bus, sometimes you might not need to put that many plugins on the individual tracks. The master bus will allow you, putting things on the master bus will allow you to glue your track together in a way that might make you see it differently and be able to present it. Yeah.
Oh, great.
No problem.
Lovely. All right. We good? We're experts on recording. We're ready to go. Yeah, one more. Love it.
I appreciate y'all, man. I was like,
Yeah.
hey, anybody gonna ask me no questions? I'm like, all right, we out. This is dope.
Good.
This is dope. You got some fly stuff.
What's going on? My name is Saif Boogie. Peace. I'm an
Peace,
artist. How you doing? So I was mainly wanting to know about the teaching artist thing, because I'm an artist, and I've got some. I'm being humble, but I got some accomplishments under my belt.
Yeah, for sure. I already know everybody in this crowd. I'm assuming. I don't know if you caught the part that I was saying. I met Emily like 10 years. Were you there for that part?
I
All right,
caught
cool.
that
So
part.
yeah. So about the teaching artist thing, if you're interested in that, you know what I'm saying, I could definitely take your info and stuff like that. But what it is that what we're looking for is asking what about teaching artists?
Yeah, well, I accumulate a lot of knowledge through trial and error and stuff like that. I feel like we kind of, from hearing your story, like we kind of similar, like, you know what I'm saying? So I feel like I could, give some knowledge from my own journey.
For sure.
So,
Yeah, and that's what's needed. I've been coming up with this phrase that's been like playing in my mind: is real people need real people.
Facts.
Right?
Facts.
And whatever that means, is genuine, honest, whatever the key, whatever real is to you. But real people need real people. So I think that to have an impact, if someone has a perspective, you're able to have an impact. When you have your own perspective of how you've been moving and navigating to make it to over here, to make it over here, that's what's definitely needed.
Okay.
For sure. I think that powerful people that's like have dedicated and been through the rigor in this craft are definitely useful, super useful in this environment with people that are just embarking on this journey. That's the key. I think we're speaking to people that are just embarking on a journey, and their idea is to, hey, I want to survive. That's their main thing. I want to survive and live, and I want to be able to survive and live through this art. Yeah. And I think having people such as Emily, such as yourself, such as like the whole team here, I think having people like that, having the youth, being exposed to the people who have tried and true stories, I think is super important to the development. So yeah, so I would definitely connect with you on that. For sure, brother. All right, peace.
I'm like so emotional hearing all this. Like, this is why we're doing this live too, you know? So it's like you and we can come together as a community and support each other, like to see this happen. I didn't expect that necessarily to happen, but I'm so moved.
Yeah, and I'm moved by you and your like thing too, because like I said, I was at this festival thing, this I am STA, I'm still festival thing, whatever. And I was sitting there and I was like really impressed by you. I was like, wow, she knows so much. I was like, if I had someone like that on my team, I could go far. You know what I mean? I was just seeing it and I was like, wow, I gotta get her card, man. You know what I mean? And I got the card, you know? And I think that even sitting here today is like, it's super impactful to me. I had to present a photo. I had to present a bio. I haven't taken a professional photo in years since I was in rap mode. So I was like, damn, I got this one picture with a wife beater on. Oh my God. You know what I'm saying? This is not gonna work. Tank top for people, you know what I mean? A white tank top, right? So, but I was just like, damn, I'm gonna be careful. This picture's like over 10 years old. I should just take one. But even prepping for this was a learning process. You know what I mean? Getting the bio done. I was halfway, damn, I haven't had to do a bio. This artist bio I have is so old. You know what I mean? I've been doing the work so much that I didn't feel prepared to be here. So I had to dig in and really get up and sit up in front of my windowsill on the floor and just write a bio and type it out. And have Carolyn edit it for me. You know what I mean? Type of vibe. So I'm very thankful for the opportunity to get to this stage. I worked really hard to get up here. Yeah. Even from this morning. You know, so I say that to say, you know, thank you very much for what you're doing, and it's a pleasure to share the stage with you.
Oh, same. And can I say, your press shot is amazing. Like, it was totally worth the wait. Like, you should check out the promo materials. I was gonna tell you that offline anyway. It is such a good photo. And, you know, that's such a good point about being so immersed in the work that you're not like updating your bio or whatever. So, just remember that as musicians and entrepreneurs too. You know, it's easy to kind of get caught in the weeds and caught in the work or even frustrated, right? But like, stop for a moment, look back and be like, wow, I've actually come this far.
Yeah. Like halfway through the process of when I knew about the interview, I was just going to be like, hey, can I just join your class to prepare for this coming up on stage? You know what I mean? Because I felt like, wow, I had so much going on. But then again, it was like I felt this is what I worked hard for. Steve Harvey, I saw on Instagram scrolling, he had a quote that he said, why would I complain about all the stuff that's on my plate when the whole goal was to eat?
Wow.
Something like that. You know what I mean? I was just like, oh, wow, I got to travel here, got to travel that. I got to go to the studio. The wires are not organized properly. You know what I mean? I got to come over here, and the cab is taking forever. I got to write a bio. All my life is terrible. But it's really, listen, this is what you work for. This is what you're here for. This is why, you know, this is what you asked for. So sometimes what you ask for isn't you might not recognize that you're actually in the lifestyle that you requested.
Yeah.
You know, I'm sure you can relate.
I can.
You know?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, Ryan, thank you so much for your time, your knowledge, your talent, your work. Let's give it up for Ryan, everyone.
Thank you so much, y'all.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah. So I just have a few more things for you all. You know, we talked about in episode 2 your pre-recording marketing foundation, you know, making sure you have your community text list in place, your email list in place, your social media handles. I totally respect creating a recording sanctuary, but also engage a little bit. You know, I personally, I don't want to see you get too caught up in social media and marketing at this stage, but we also talked about monetizing your music before it's even out with a pre-order, with a Patreon, right? So, you know, if you're comfortable, share a demo, share a music, you know, share some sort of teaser along with your pre-order link, with your Patreon, right? So you can monetize your music before it's out. And if releasing a demo or something sounds like torture, I totally respect that. You could just snap a photo of an instrument or a vocal booth or a mic or something, you know, along with that pre-order, along with that Patreon, so your fans can support you and come along for the journey. So don't forget to engage a little bit while you're recording. And then the last thing I want to say is if you haven't thought about artwork yet, as when you're at this stage of the journey, definitely start thinking about it when you're mastering, because I've worked with really successful artists where it's not even close to their first rodeo or first release, and they're like, oh my gosh, like it's coming out and I need to figure out artwork, right? So I've seen artwork hold up releases. So just start to think about that, you know, work on that, because you don't want to be scrambling at the end. So wow, I think that was a really amazing episode. I could listen to Ryan all night. That was incredible. But thanks so much for joining us today. We are off tomorrow for our live folks because we'll be at New York Music Month's amazing conference at New York University that my incredible business partner, Melissa Garcia, is speaking at. But we will be back here on Thursday at 4 p.m. Eastern here at Tower Records Tower Labs in Brooklyn, or via live stream on YouTube as we discuss, as alluded to, music publishing isn't scary or confusing, plus how to land a sync placement. And that's going to be with award-winning composer Matthew Wong. So thanks so much to podcast manager Michael Zimmerlich, engineer Nathan Kane, Thursday's guest Matthew Wong for composing the show's music, Danny, David, and Jake at Tower Records, today's incredible guest Ryan Burvick, Warm Audio, the Ally Coalition, Liquid Death, Hal Leonard, and of course, the Mayor's Office of Media and Entertainment's New York Music Month for making this all happen. We'll see you Thursday. Bye.